All right. Previously, I was discussing the um, Parmenides dialogue, and I was discussing the forms, and I was discussing Socrates and Zeno's and Parmenides discussion. And I talked about Parmenides picking at Socrates' definition of divisibility, and each representative of the form getting a share. And I want to continue this whole discussion by talking about Socrates' other definition or other characterization of a form. He says that each form is itself by itself. Parmenides also says that this is wrong, or this is something that really needs to be clarified, and that this is not really. It kind of conflicts with the idea of the form also being many. Because I kind of did a little illustration here to show how there's a hierarchy of forms or universals, where you can have a form which will you can have a form that will be laying next to other forms, which will be created into one form. That created form will be laying next to other forms. That a bunch of forms will be created into another form, and so on, which kind of screws up the idea of something being many, because you can't have a form itself by itself, because you have this hierarchy of forms, or what we've called now a universal. You have this whole hierarchy. Now, I kind of drew a little illustration here because I want to show how we can have this sort of hierarchy. So, like for instance, here we have the form of stupidity. Here we have the form of relatability. Here we have the form of profanity. And here we have the form of insult. All these four together can go together. All these forms together go into the form of comedy, or something being comical. Each of these forms and what's in it can be a instantiation of something being comical. And now this thing being comical, we have lying next to it something being worth doing, or something being some. How do I want to put that? I'm thinking about because the main form that encompasses all these is enjoyability. So we have in here next to comedy, we have kindness or niceness, and we have here nourishment, and we have here leisure or something like that. All those together become enjoyability. Things next to it would be also the form of kindness or niceness. Next to it would be also something being helpful or something like that, which might go towards something being the good. So we have these hierarchies, which together, because if you look at Plato's line, we have on there we have the dialectic, and we have the form of the good, which are at the very top of the whole line of his forms. And I'm not saying that this little illustration I have with all these forms and hierarchies and encompassing forms, I'm not saying that all of this is the way towards the good or anything like that. I'm just trying to give an illustration about the structure of all these forms, the structure of the hierarchy of all these forms that are in the world, and how this goes towards something like dialectic, or the good, the form of the good, as the form of the good and the dialectic are at the top in Plato's line. So basically what I want to say here is that you have many wholenesses, you have many unities, many ones among many of them next to each other. So the whole idea of something being itself by itself is what Parmenides says is wrong, because you can't have the one and the many the concept of something being one and the concept of something being many, and the same thing if you have the forms being a form being itself by itself. Now, then Socrates, what he does is he gives his day analogy, like you have many places in one day. This is another way to look at there being many things many things in one at the same time. So Parmenides, having picking on Socrates' definition, and now we have a revised thing where each representative of a form is a resemblance, and there's a likeness between the two. There's a likeness between the form and the instantiation of that form, and we have the idea of not being itself by itself, and we have this whole hierarchy with the day analogy and Parmenides' sail analogy, with a bunch of representatives or resemblances being under a huge sail. Here you have the whole idea of one and many among a structure of one set, possibly infinite set of entities, but you still have oneness among all of it. So this is what this means to the world, or to the way we see reality, is that we can have things that are one and many. I mean, we can look at the world and comprehend it, and we can look at things and we will either see it as one or many, but it needs to be understood that it is actually both. And the concepts of one and many are together and do coexist. We do have coexistence of this world of one and many, like a universal. Like we think of things, or I mean, it's metaphysics thinks of things as universals now. We can think of it in the same way. We can think of a form as in the same way as a universal. They're basically the same thing. If you look at the universals, this basically encompasses everything that exists in the world. These universals are instantiated in ontologically existent beings in the world, and therefore you have one and many in this world. You can't say things aren't many. You can't say things aren't one. I mean, there are many ways that you can look at the world. You can kind of have a natural philosophy, or you can have some kind of philosophy of the world, of oneness in the world, or unity, or any kind of natural philosophy which can encompass everything as one. Or you can have something like that, or you can have a sort of a anarchical philosophy which shows that everything is many, and that you really can't see any oneness beyond that, and that the universe is going to keep you're going to, if you go out past the Earth into the universe, you're never going to stop. You're never going to run into a wall or anything. You're never going to be able to stop, because you're just going to keep going into more and more space. This is an idea where things are many. This is an idea where it's difficult to think of things as other than many. But I'm just thinking that no matter how the world is comprehended by different conscious beings, it needs to be understood that there's one and many in this world. There's both. But I don't know, I've been thinking about that, and it's just, I think Plato very well shows how things are both one and many in the world. So I don't know, I wanted to show that just because it's a good thing to think about, that, it's not a polar type of thing here. You have both concepts and everything that exists. You have one and you have many. Okay, so thank you. I just wanted to go through all that and show how things can be both. We don't have to choose one way or the other.